everybody, and welcome back to the Drive Pink Dialogue. It is about 48 hours since Inter Miami's season ended at the hands of Atlanta United, and I'm still not over it. I know we did the post-game show yesterday, but I still think there's a little bit more soul-searching to do in this end-of-season sort of upset result that none of us expected. We got Soar's opinion on it yesterday, so today I thought I would bring in a fresh face, a fresh voice, to get a sense for what this team can do moving forward. How successful was 2024? And so today I brought in my friend Mike Longin from the Inter Miami show to have those exact conversations. So I appreciate you for joining, and I also appreciate you for being co-host today. How are you doing, my man?
I don't know at this point. I'm still in shock. I told a number of people this. I was fully prepared for us to lose. I kind of expected it, and yet at the same time, I'm still not over it. I think this one's going to take a while to really sit, and I think there's going to be a lot of soul searching. I don't think the soul search is going to end when we finish tonight's show, but I think it's going to be a lot of soul searching, and I'm really interested to see the next really 2 weeks in Miami. I think November 27th is when we have to start talking. They start finalizing, roster drop and stuff for the end of the season. So I think what happens there is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, I will say I think Inter Miami was pretty surprised that they went out so early. So I'm sure they're still in the process of talking about how to make those decisions and what they want to do moving forward. I don't think anyone in that organization really thought they were going out on Saturday. I thought they probably had another 2 weeks at the minimum. So I think it'll be a little while till we start getting those types of decisions. But that doesn't mean we can't talk about it. So again,
well, they only have till I think November 27th. So according to my friend Jeff, club deadline to exercise options and submit bona fide offers is November 27th. So it's not a lot of time. We are now under the clock because we did not make the conference finals. So it's not like we're going to wait to December for some of these answers. We're going to start hearing them much sooner than everyone expected, including probably Chris Henderson, Xavi, or whoever, and then the new people over there.
Yeah, Sanyehi. Yeah, definitely. Last year, they were the first team to do it, so they were really on top of it, really ready for that. As soon as they were allowed to, they announced, not bringing back Joseph Martinez, Dixon Arroyo. So this time, I think it's going to take them a little bit more than that. But yeah, you're absolutely right. The clock has started, and that's not just the guys that have options. It's also the guys that are under contract that they can get rid of a little bit easier, and that includes potentially Tata Martino, who we are going to talk about in this episode. But before we do that, I want to start by talking about whether this season was a failure. I remember early in the season, they talked about having 4 trophies. Supporter Shield was a goal, but so was the Leagues Cup, so was the CONCACAF Champions Cup, so was the MLS Cup, and winning this trophy. So for Inter Miami, at least in terms of the broader goals, it feels like it was a failure. We're going to talk about that. But I guess first question, was 2024 a failure in your eyes?
This is a really tough question. And so I'm going to be true to something I said on the Inter Miami show, I think 2 weeks ago, where with winning the Supporter Shield, with getting the CWC berth, whether it was contrived and just given to us or not, we now have the berth. And with a club CCC berth, I don't think we can truly call this a failure. And listen, and a lot of the viewers in your comments know I'm a huge Tata guy, and I've not been kind to this club, but we do have a piece of legitimate hardware. I actually think the Shield is way more legitimate than the Leagues Cup trophy. So the season does look better. And so if I'm not going to call it a failure, what am I going to call it? And I was kind of thinking about it's employee review season. I know if you're probably at any company, you're starting talking about employee reviews. We did not meet expectations. We would be on a performance plan to start the next year. We'd be on a PIP because one trophy wasn't enough.
You don't generally come back from that either.
Yeah, I'm not sure we're coming back from the PIP. I don't think Tata Martino should be. I really think Branton, my co-host in the Miami show, has called this team a tournament team over and over again. And frankly, we did horrible in tournaments. We were the opposite of a tournament team, right? Like the only thing we did well in was not playing in tournaments. And yet here's the thing, we were built to win, and we crashed out of every single tournament. The best we did was what quarterfinals and CCC. Never of the other 2 tournaments, we never made it past. Like, that's mind-blowingly bad. But to call it a failure, God, it's really hard to do when he just won the Supporter Shield, 74 points, most points in MLS history, and berths to the 2 big tournaments next year.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. There's also a lot of smaller things that we should be proud of. I think we took the next step with a lot of our young players. Noah Allen was incredible down the stretch. Kermaski and Ian Frey were both really good this year. David Ruiz, also a big impactful player from the academy. Yannick Bright and Leo Alfonso had a really big impact, particularly Yannick Bright coming out of the super draft. So the young players have sort of stepped up. And I think that was a positive. You also didn't do particularly well against Atlanta, NYCFC. You did beat Columbus, so that was fun. But again, I think you have to judge whether it was a success based on what the standard should be. And because we have Lionel Messi, because we have all of this talent, you kind of have to reevaluate what the standard is. If we were Inter Miami of 2022, of course, this would have been an unbelievable year, a success, 1,000 out of 100. But because the standard should be higher because the talent is higher, you kind of have to grade it on a different scale. You mentioned it that our tournament runs were not that successful. We made it past 1 round of knockout stages.
I think I said it a little stronger than that, to be fair.
You're right. We made it past only 1 round of knockout stages in the Leagues Cup, in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, and we didn't even make it out of the first round of the playoffs. So I don't think it's possible to really say this team was successful. And again, if you're going to finals and you're losing, I can understand that. If you have a run of bad injuries and it costs you 1 tournament, I can understand that. But it felt like there was a different excuse for every tournament exit this season. And that makes me a little nervous about if this team can just run it back next year and be more successful. I guess I want to ask you.
I just question, is it black and white? Is it, if you didn't succeed, you failed? I think the scale is more gray than that, which is why I struggle to just say it's an outright failure. And I know I'm not going to read the comments, but lots of comments calling it a failure, and I get that. But we brought home what, depending on who you ask, the hardest trophy to get in MLS. I just think to call it a complete and abject failure when you did that, when you have the berths, when you set the new record, I just can't go to that level of calling it a failure. Now, I know someone in the comments may comment, if it's not a failure, why would he fire Tata? I'm like, because to your point, he didn't do what he was brought here to do. When you're brought here to do something specific and you don't do it, then you get fired. And we'll get into that more. But I just struggle on saying complete failure, Supporter Shield trophies, berths are not enough. So, you failed. Every other club at any other time in MLS, if you told me you won the Supporter Shield, no matter who was on the roster, you put David Beckham, you put Ibrahimovic, you put all these great players. Yeah, they're still going to say, guys, we did win something. It wasn't a complete failure. Did we hit expectations? Absolutely not. The club did not meet its expectations. Its stated expectations. By the way, these aren't just expectations from us fans who had wild dreams of 4 trophies, but I think Jorge Mas specifically came out and said multiple trophies is the expectation of this club. So we didn't meet the expectations. I just can't say the phrase abject failure, complete failure, things of that nature.
Yeah, I hear you. And you're right. It wasn't us who set the standard for this team. It was the team. It was Tata Martino. It was Julian Gressel. I believe it was Drake Callender in the preseason. They're the guys talking about 4 trophies, and they would have been talking about 5 if we were still in the U.S. Open Cup. Like, that was their ambition for this year, and they felt good about being able to create that, especially coming after last year's Leagues Cup run. And I know they didn't make the playoffs, but they sort of had a couple injuries down the road, and they were sort of too far gone at that point to recover for a playoff spot. But this season, the expectations were very high. They charged ticket prices, I'm sure you are well aware, that would seem that they indicated this is a team that's going to win trophies at a very high level. That was the brand exposure that they wanted. These were the expectations they wanted to be held to. And so I think in that vein, you kind of have to hold them to those expectations, whether you want to call it a disappointment, a failure, or just lacking a little bit. I guess that's just your matter of perspective, and that's fine. But
it was not a success. I think granted, like, put it in the flip the way, saying this was absolutely not a successful season. No one should be hanging their head high. Soul searching needs to be done top to bottom. And I think it's just that definition of what do you call failure. I know Sean Callahan just said 25% on any test is an F. That's a fair statement. And then that by that definition, this is a failure. And I can't argue that definition. I think it does come down to how do you define failure? But clearly this wasn't good enough. It wouldn't have been good enough no matter what. If we had made it to maybe the finals and lost to an LAFC or an LA Galaxy, maybe we're having a very different conversation. But we got beat. I'm sorry, we got beat in almost basically 3 games. Like 2-1 win at home to open up was not good enough. Getting beat in Atlanta, absolutely not good enough. And then getting beat at home. And at the end of the day, the best player on that pitch for 3 straight games was a 40-year-old goalkeeper that one time got a handball costing his team a Gold Cup semifinal berth. And now he just beat the best player in the world who wasn't the best player. And I think that is where you really have to be looking at what went wrong. And to me, maybe I'm jumping ahead in your script, but it starts with Tata Martino.
Okay, let's hold off on Tata for just a second because you just made a good point that I want to dig into a little bit. And that's about if this team is talented enough to get there, because as it came down to it in these final games, we put the ball in the metaphorical hands of our best players and they couldn't deliver. And so if you're Atlanta and you do that with Guzan and Tiare and Miranchuk and you say they weren't good enough to deliver, you can say, okay, let's go get some better players. Let's go operate at a higher level. But with this Inter Miami team, you have the best players you are ever going to get on an MLS roster. You're never going to have a player better than Lionel Messi. And then Busquets as your second best player is as good as anyone. Jordi Alba is as good as anyone for sort of a complementary piece. And same with Suarez, same with Diego Gomez. And then the mid-level of this roster is so much more talented than most MLS teams could ever dream of. The Matthias Rojas's and the Redondos and the Yannick Brights and the Julian Gressels, Robert Taylor, Drake Callender. Like that is the mid-level of this roster, and it would be the core of a lot of teams in this league. And then even some of the young players, very few teams have a Benjamin Kramaski to bring off the bench or Noah Allen or, Toto Aviles, guys like that. So it feels to me like you can't expect to upgrade the talent and have that solve a lot of your issues, which would be the case in almost every Inter Miami season. Well, in every Inter Miami season to date and across the league for almost everyone, but not this Inter Miami team.
Yeah, I get really frustrated. I spend way too much time on Twitter and some of these other Facebook smart places and reading the comments. And I find it interesting. It's amazing to be watching people flip. 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, calendar's so great. It's amazing. This week, we got a fire calendar. I was on the fire Tata train a long time ago. I know you and I in the heartbeat. I was arguing with you months ago about this, and everyone thought I was nuts. And now it's not just your comment section, but you go any place and it's there. So I think this team, this fan base is just very twitchy. But yes, this is the best roster in MLS ever assembled. And if we had, again, I'm going to call out LAFC, and to someone lesser except LA Galaxy or have rosters that were built to beat us. Atlanta did not in any way, shape, or form have a roster built to beat us. There was no one on that pitch that was their best player is not up to our top 5 players. But they beat us. And a guy like Dax McCarty, who I really enjoy watching, and if I want to tell you my biggest regret from Saturday night was not having a poster that said, hey, what it was at least it wasn't a total loss. Dax, can I have your jersey? I think that was a missed opportunity I had just to kind of go back to echo his Messi tweet after the Leagues Cup final. But these are not better players, but they were a better team. And I'm going to say it all night. Credit to Brad Guzan because he stood on his head for 3 straight games. And besides one boneheaded moment that gifted us that goal in the second game, he was perfect. And our players just they had a team. What's his? There's a guy named Mateo Hineo. He posted a picture on Twitter coming out of, I think, halftime when Atlanta went to a circle and huddled, and our team was just standing there as individuals. And is that really meaningful? No, because maybe our guys' team circled, but it looked it, and you knew it. And in the stadium, there was not an expectation that we were going to come back. There was not this expectation that we were going to win. Everyone was on pins and needles because you could see the team wasn't a team that night. And it hasn't been for a lot of the season.
Yeah. Listen, we talked to Yannick Bright on here, and he talked about how close everyone was, and it felt very genuine. So I don't want to say that this team doesn't like each other, there's locker room issues or anything like. I don't want to let that be a narrative that gets started out of this. And I also don't want to just focus on this Atlanta United series because it was bigger than this, right? We saw these same issues as potential pitfalls all season. The transition defense, not getting the midfield structure right consistently, the defense not being able to defend one-on-one and then not supporting them effectively. And so now let's get into Tata Martino. You're absolutely right.
Can I argue the point that I think that I referenced Ted Lasso a lot on my show. And then there's a line in one of the last episodes where he goes, "You're not doing it. I'm not doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong." I have this feeling, this thought about the team, which is it was the defense and calendar have never been the issue. The midfield might be the issue, but our 100%. Inability to score is the fundamental problem on this team. Our MLS kind of forces you to make, with their salary cap, forces you to choose: is your goal scoring? Is your goal as a team to be scoring oriented, balanced, or defensive oriented? And we have gone out and made ourselves a scoring oriented team. And if you look, and I know you don't want to hype on the series, but we can take it bigger too. We barely scored in this series. You know, we scored 2 goals. I'm not like, you almost can't count the Atlanta goal in Atlanta because, again, Bernardo handed the ball to. So you only had 4 goals in the entire series. Messi, 1 goal, 1 assist. Suarez, 1 goal, 1 assist. For a team that was built to score, we do a very poor job at it. And so when we talk about upgrades, to me, it's not about defense. I don't think we need defensive upgrades. I don't think we need goalkeeper upgrades. I think we need midfield and specifically attacking option upgrades to make up for the fact that our top offensive players are all on the wrong side of 35.
Listen, I will say this team had 100 goals in 45 games, over 2 goals per game. They on a regular basis, they scored enough goals to win games. But I agree with you. I don't think it was the individual talent defensively or in goal. It was, oftentimes structure, whether this team was set up to create as much offense as possible. Because as you mentioned, even though there was a ton of goals, a lot of it came from a couple players significantly outperforming what they should have been expected to do. And so that's what happens when you have elite players. But you're right in the sense that the structure didn't create.
Was that your post I saw on Twitter calling out the fact that Inter Miami so exceeded expected goals just because of the eliteness of our players, like plus 30 points or something? It was an insane number tied to just how good these players are versus what you can expect from them day in and day out.
Yeah. So you are right that the structure doesn't necessarily create as much offense as we would have liked, even if the elite players sort of hide that with their goal scoring prowess. And I think it also leaves us a little vulnerable defensively. And so maybe that's why we should switch the topic to Tata Martino, because you're right. We talked about this a few months ago. You made some really interesting points, and I wanted to play devil's advocate with you. And we were on a nice winning streak. So I felt Tata deserved that at the time, but he's poor in making in-game adjustments. He's poor at getting the substitutions right and using those effectively to change games. And his starting 11s are not always too sensible. I mean, you can make sense out of them, but they're not always the most obvious and oftentimes end up not being the right choice. So there's a lot to criticize him for. And I want to get into that because I think we've mentioned it's going to be almost impossible, if not impossible, to upgrade the talent on this roster. And so we'll talk about redistributing the talent in different spots and that. But I think the easiest thing you can do to sort of try and upgrade this team is to look at the coaching staff and say, is this coach and coaching staff up to the standard that the talent is, that our expectations are? And there was no one else I'd rather talk to about this than you. So I will let you start your rant.
Yeah, no, I'm not. First off, this is not my ranting show. Our conversation is too educated to go on a full rant. But the basic answer is I've said it all year. And there was a line from a movie. It's like, it's sometimes it's sad to be right all the time. No, he's not up to the standard. He never was. I actually think I gave him too much credit sometimes for his initial lineups. Saturday night's lineup was horrendous. It was just god-awfully horrendous. His mid-game adjustments have consistently been bad. I am sorry. At the 77th minute, when I understand that we had to pull Toto, he was injured, 78th minute. We all saw him be injured and then just lie there as the goal was scored. You bring in Sergio Busquets as a center back to just sit there in the back. If you want Busquets on, you had to go to a 3-man line. In fact, you should have been a 3-man line the entire game. Noah Allen has been arguably one of the hottest players in this team. Noah Allen stood on an island against Cucho Hernandez and kept him bottled up. And yet you don't even let the kids see the field. Julian Gressel, like, we needed a midfielder that can be creative and body and work both sides. You put in Kramaski over Gressel. Like, these are not decisions, I think, that as fans, without seeing what's behind the scenes, because we all know what's said, but we can look at this and go, this doesn't make sense. You know, Atlanta used all 5 of their subs. We used 3. Getting Kramaski off and getting Campana, I agreed with, but there should have been other adjustments as well. I mean, when you're in a 4-man, okay, I guess I am ranting. When you're in a 4-man line, and a 4-man line inhibits Alba, because you said something earlier that I actually disagree with. I think Alba has been the MVP of this team week in and week out. I think he's the heartbeat of the team. I think he's the soul of the team. I think his work, that defensive play he made, I think it was in like the 85th minute. He came sprinting back. He was completely beat, got sprinted back, and kept us from another goal down. He's in a 4-man line. He's bottled up. He's got too much defensive responsibility. This is why we've been playing 3-man lines. And I just can't make sense of any of this. And it's not like this, as you said, was a one-off. We saw consistent issues all through the season. The talent of our team simply just beat every team around it. And sooner or later, it was going to catch up to us. And Atlanta, as you said, had our number all season. 1 win, 1 draw, 3 losses to this team. We talk about how the points we got. And from this team, we averaged, I think, 0.8 points a match.
Well, and all 3 losses were exactly the same. They just sat back and hit us in transition quickly. Even though it was a different Atlanta roster in that first loss, it was the same exact setup. And they did the same thing. Listen, I think we're going to disagree on Jordi Alba a little bit, but that's okay. That's not really the point of this. Certainly in hindsight, Noah Allen not playing feels tough when David Martinez was just a little slow, and Noah Allen was just incredible in that one-on-one transition defense over the last month or so. Big picture, though, I want to defend Tata a little bit, because if we talk about his positives, we can sort of break down how relevant they are. This team did get a lot better over the course of the last year in set piece defense. At the end of last season, one of the biggest talking points was, can this team figure out how to defend set pieces? It was sort of an Achilles heel for us. That has improved significantly. Even at the beginning of the season, it was a little bit of a problem. They did improve. They weren't as bad in defensive transition in the second half of the season. I think a lot of that has to do with Yannick Bright's emergence and him just being the guy that's naturally really good at stopping that. But I think if you want to give Tata credit for that, you can. He did a better job of integrating our young players than I thought he would. Noah Allen found a role that none of us expected him to have. David Ruiz, early in the season, was trying to find some playing time, and Tata did that for him. Diego Gomez has certainly elevated his game under Tata. He did finally get Yannick Bright into sort of a locked-in starting position. So there are some positives to Tata, and we'll talk about his roster construction in a few minutes, but I don't want it to be all negative about Tata. But is that good enough?
I want to challenge that, because first off, I agree on one of the things you said. Noah Allen, he changed him as a player. Noah Allen is going to be a marketable asset when his contract's up, when he probably wouldn't have been a huge one without Martino shaping him into a workable center back. I know someone just said that we have no defensive talent. I think that's absolutely incorrect. I think our talent and defense is consistent with an average MLS team's talent. I think Noah Allen's if not better. The journey that Noah Allen has taken since he got on a plane to Hong Kong earlier this year has been remarkable, and that's 100% on Tata Martino. But here's the thing. Tata Martino is not being paid to make Noah Allen into a better player. He's not being paid to make Bright into a great player. He's being paid to win trophies. The only thing he's being paid for right now is to win trophies. We have now one more year with the greatest show on earth, the greatest lineup, again, MLS has ever seen, to win the one trophy that puts a star on our chest, or win a international level tournament. And I can pretty much guarantee we're not going to win Club World Cup. So it's got to be CCC. And that's what he's being paid for. So I actually appreciate what he's done for Noel. And I think my son is now playing in the same club that Noah Allen came from. Like, my son's not Noah Allen, don't get me wrong, but the fact that I can see a kid who played in Weston playing with the best, that's a journey, and I love it. I think it's absolutely remarkable. But that is not what Tata Martino is being paid for. That's not what Jorge Mas is never going to Tata. Hey, at least the kids are having fun and they're learning, right? Like Tata Martino is not Ted Lasso. Like, that's not who he is. His job is to win and win now. So I guess I ranted again. Long-winded answer. No, it's not good enough. Not good. It's not good enough to give the credit he's being given because you're giving him, because that's not what he's being paid to do. That is a nice, positive after the fact. Yeah. But when your job is to win the trophies that matter, that's the job.
And I think you make a good point there. Inter Miami is not like other teams around the world. It's not like other teams in the MLS that are trying to build into something. They have something and it's about to end. Whether that's 1 year from now or it's 2 years from now, or however long they're able to keep this together, it is going to end and the clock is ticking, and it's going to get harder to replicate every year because Messi is going to get a year older, and even though he's still going to be the best player in the league, it's just going to be a little harder.
And we might have lost Suarez already. Like I'm not rumor mongering, but everyone he's the contract negotiations are going on. So our 20 goal contribution striker we had this year may not already be. We might have already ticked off that item from the things we can have.
No, yeah.
Whoa. That better not be about me. Don't ever compare me to Alexi. First off, I have much better hair than him.
For the record, Rohan says, I thought Lalas was on the pod for a second talking about
sorry, I meant to say it out loud. Yeah.
So my point in saying that is this team has a finite amount of time to win trophies. And so there's no point in building things. Developing players like Diego Gomez that are going to sell off, it doesn't matter if it's not about winning trophies now. Developing Yannick Bright and Noah Allen, it doesn't matter if it's not helping to win now. That's great, and you love it for those guys as individuals. And also, I think it did help them win games this year. But like you said, the objective has to win trophies. It has to be to win trophies and win as many as you can. I don't think it's about winning MLS Cup or winning CONCACAF Champions Cup. I think it's about winning all of them, because in every single tournament, you have the best player and you're potentially the most talented team. Tata Martino hasn't done that now in 3 tournaments this year. He didn't make the playoffs last year, and I'll excuse him for that. He did win the Leagues Cup last year. But
he did lose the U.S. Open Cup last year. He was gifted a semifinal berth.
True.
And I know he had some injuries, but again, everyone kind of gives him a pass for playoffs last year, and I can give him that pass. But I don't think we can give him the pass for U.S. Open Cup because we got manhandled by Houston.
Well, not just that. If you think about the Leagues Cup last year, Inter Miami had a lot of leads in the first 5 or 7 minutes of games. And really, it was just that Nashville game at the end that was a real struggle. He did make a couple substitutions to help us get through that Dallas game.
That Dallas game, they gifted us that header. One of the nicest headers you ever seen into the wrong goal.
Yeah. And then, like you said, in the U.S. Open Cup, the semifinal against Cincinnati, we were losing 2-0, and Messi and Campana had to kind of go Superman to get us into extra time where we could eventually win it in penalties. This year, though, it feels like he's done a lot of things right in the regular season. I remember that first game against Columbus in Chase Stadium back in, I think, June. I was really impressed with what he put out there. And it shocked Columbus, and it helped us get a 2-1 win. And Ian Frey had the header, and that was great. But it felt like in the biggest games this year, he came up a little limp. That game in Monterrey was probably the worst coaching job I've ever seen. No substitutes, no change of game plan, even though your tournament is falling apart in front of you. I thought he was really poor in the Columbus loss in the Leagues Cup that eliminated us. Couldn't make the substitutions in the second half to stem the flow of momentum that Columbus was building in those final 30 minutes. And then, of course, this past week, I think I blame it more on, some of the star players not playing like star players, but ultimately, if you're the coach, it's sort of a theme. You need to be better about this. And so I guess my final question about Tata is, can he be that guy moving forward, or is it time to make a change if you're Inter Miami?
I don't. So I was going to add, you're going through the list. I only think he really performed well against Columbus. Funny enough, because I consider Nancy to be the best coach in MLS, and for some reason, Tata seems to have his number. I think the 3-2 win in Columbus was more impressive than the two. I think it was a 2-1 victory we had in Chase. Us beating Cincinnati originally was going to look like a good game, and Acosta gets injured. So I don't think he's ever shown that he can show up for a big game with this team. Leagues Cup run was a magical run. I think it's brought, it's funny you brought up the Columbus with the Ian Frey. That Ian Frey was such a great story. That team was, we talk about team playing and acting too. That team was playing for Ian Frey, especially after he got the header. Like losing that game after he got the header would have been criminal. So he's really made use of the emotions of his team. And when his team's emotions run out, he gets in a hole. So I don't think there's any way to go forward with him. I think if we go forward with him, Jorge Mas is really kind of making a really interesting bet that the guy who couldn't win this year is somehow going to win next year. Now, obviously, we'll learn from this. I think it was Twellman, I was listening to the after show, made a point that like LA Galaxy won the Supporters Shield before they won the MLS Cup. Like they had to learn a little bit of what they had. But I just think there's so much evidence right now to show that Tata Martino does not have the ability to really coach this team to its fullest potential.
Yeah,
we used to make a lot of jokes that like anybody could coach this team to what they've done, but I think it's a little hard when you've won 74 points. Like you have to coach it somewhat, but you got to be able to win tournaments, and that's going to be the big argument. We failed in every single tournament. Like that's a complete failure.
You said that LAFC, they won the Supporter Shield and they won the MLS Cup the next year, but Steve Cherundolo was second year coach.
I meant LA Galaxy. LA Galaxy with Beckham. I think they won the Supporter Shield before they won. I think that was the comment they made. Maybe I'm completely off now.
But the LAFC too in 2021 couldn't get it done. 2022 they do. That's the Gareth Bale year. And you're talking about Steve Cherundolo, a very novice coach. I think it was his second year as a professional manager, and a very young team that added some pieces in that second year, like Gareth Bale, that helped them get over the top. Chiellini as well. This team has all of the experience from a player perspective. They, I know there's a lot of young players, but they have always stepped up to the moment, I think. And Lionel Messi and Suarez and Busquets and Jordi Alba, they've done it all. They shouldn't need this learning experience. And Tata Martino is 63. He's not going to grow from this. He's been through the MLS Cup playoffs. He's been through the MLS. He understands how to manage superstar players as well as he's ever going to. And so I think it's different in the sense that this team doesn't feel like it's preparing for next year. This felt like as good as you're ever going to have it, really.
Well, I want to disagree with something because I think if you bring in the right coach, Messi can maybe not learn from him. I think you're right in that statement, but can utilize what he's being taught from a different perspective. Like I'm going to say Pep, just as the easy example. If Pep's talking, Messi's probably listening. Do I believe when Tata's talking that Messi is listening? I absolutely do not. And I'm not just saying this from complete other. I'm saying it from watching the sidelines, from everything else going on, from the whispers you hear out of the locker room. Like, I don't think Messi's really respecting Messi and friends. Are respecting. We've seen Alba lose his composure multiple times. I know we say athletes being athletes, but I do think there are coaches out there that can get the best of players. I wanted Pochettino. Like that was my dream coach, and he was perfect for this team. U.S. Soccer got him first, which I'm also super thrilled about. I'm not going to be able to list the criteria for this coaching role. So please don't ask me a question like who you have coached, because the criteria for this coaching role is very difficult, and it's going to require pretty good price tags. Probably not going to be someone that's sitting around doing nothing right now. But you have to go find that coach, and Messi has to be a part of this decision-making process so that, and obviously he would be, so that it's a person he goes, yes, I would love to have him helping set up, setting the tactical formations. I would love to have him making the subs. Because while I'm sure Messi has input on tactical formations pre-game, middle game management, at the end of the day, it's coming from the sideline. Now, maybe Messi's screaming, get Campana in here. But I think it's more of like, at that point, the coach really is the one driving those decisions. And we've got to do better. Because Saturday was again abysmal mid-game management.
Yeah. I agree with you. And I would never ask you who that coach is because I think we all know the top 25 coaches in the world. And I think it's very hard to say any of them are realistic candidates for Inter Miami. With that said, I think Tata Martino on paper was sort of a perfect candidate when he came in. And so, again, I think it's really hard for us to look at resumes and say this is the guy because listen, Tata had MLS experience. He had won MLS Cup. He had coached Messi, he had coached Barcelona, lots of experience around star players. Like on paper, he was a better option than Steve Cherundolo or Jim Curtin or something like that.
Man, I agreed with you. I agree with you prior to hindsight. And I will tell you, when he was picked, I said, this is great. But then you start hearing, hey, guys, remember, he failed at Barcelona. Hey, he failed with Argentina. Hey, he failed with Mexico, coming off a huge failure with Mexico. And we all looked past that because we all going, remember Atlanta 2018? Remember, he has Martinez. We have Martinez. It sounded like it was going to work, but I feel like that sounding was skin deep. And once you kind of peeled back that 2018 MLS Cup victory, it all crumbled. So, and again, I'm being very honest here. I was definitely a Martino fan when we first came out.
I think that's a little unfair because the fact that he failed at Barcelona is a sign of many great coaches, right? Have done that.
That is fair.
So on paper, I think he was an excellent choice. And so now if you are going to move on from Tata Martino, you have to think very deeply about exactly what this team needs in the biggest moments to succeed. And then you go out and find someone that's good in those types of situations. And that can be hard if you're just looking at who coached at the biggest clubs or who won the Premier League or whatever, right? Because the resume can lie if the situations are very different. We've talked about the urgency of getting the most out of this team. And so if you do find another coach, it has to be someone that's tailor-made to fix the problems that we have right now. So
I will say, I think Mass has to go find Pochettino, offer him $20 million and say, come coach this team. I need you to get us over this hump. Because to me, he's the perfect person at this point. I think he checks all the boxes. I gave you one name.
Yeah, if they take Pochettino from the USMNT, I'll be sad.
I would be, but I'd also be happy because that's the guy who get near Miami over the hump.
I know, but then they're going to hire Chicago's new head coach to be the next USMNT manager.
Actually, my hope was Cherundolo to go to US Soccer anyway, so maybe I can get both. I can get both. LAFC loses a coach. I get Cherundolo, and I get Pochettino. I could really win this lottery real quickly.
You're losing me here. I'm getting close to muting you with this Pochettino nonsense. Anyways, okay, so let's figure out what exactly this team does need because it's not always easy to pinpoint, but at the same time, we spend so much time with talking about this team, watching this team every game. No one should be better at understanding what the problems are from outside the building than sort of people that go to every game and watch every game and talk about every game and break down every game. And so with that said, what's like one thing you would really love to see from the coach of Inter Miami in 2025, whether it's Tata Martino or someone else?
I mean, my number one thing, and this goes all the way back to, oh my God, I can't think of our first coach's name right now. Why is it escaping my head? But it's mid-game management. Alfonso. He didn't even know you could use 5 subs. Like he would always stop at 3 subs. And I always wonder if someone came to him and said, hey, you got 2 more. Mid-game management and subbing has been a consistent failure at this club. And I think it's even so much more important with the Messi and friends where you have to bring people in that when they get on the field, can understand the new formation. They can just run into it and make good decisions. And so that is my number one hope for what this new person does. I think if we're looking for qualifications, obviously has to be able to balance MLS and the Latin needs of our team and community. And so I think that's another tough one. That's going to really limit the coaching bubble. I do prefer someone with MLS experience, but I'm totally happy. I can be sold that doesn't have to be MLS experience. I just don't want a situation where we bring in someone from Europe or South America and they just assume MLS is a joke and then comes here in about 6 months and finds out that it's a competitive league and there's it's competitive. It's a competitive league and there's so many little intricate details about MLS and the salary cap structure and all the travel and these other things that come into it that you have to be prepared for.
Let's talk about something else that is in regards to Tata, but could be secondary if we, as we move forward. He was responsible for bringing in everyone over the past 17 months, right? He was the guy that identified Diego Gomez and Farias and Aviles and brought in Julian Gressel and Martinez and Frede and everyone, right? It was Tata. And Chris Henderson went out and made it happen, but he was the guy that found these players, Matias Rojas, Cello. He has been so integral in building this team. And I wonder what happens if you pull that out from the club, because I'm not confident that Raul Sanyehi is the guy that has this huge network of players in the MLS type market, right? In South America and Mexico, et cetera, that he can go out and find the type of players that Inter Miami needs to bring in. And then if that's the case, you need a coach that also can be a big part of that. And I guess I wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
I don't think it was solely Tata Martino. I think Messi has a clearly established group of people he wants to play with. He's a clearly established group of scouts around him that can identify players. And I think looking at this, Raul coming in, I know many people who hate Raul, but Raul coming in is going to identify players. So I don't think if you walk Tata out the door, you're necessarily losing that. And I also have to say, we're only going to bring in 2, maybe 3 new players that kind of falls within that, what you just described. Am I going to say I'm not going to fire Tata because he might find 2 players that somebody else can't find? I don't think that's actually a reality. I think the team's got a board already of who they're scouting for. I'm sure they already know the players they think they need. Whether we all agree with that, it might be a different story, but I don't think that should be a reason to keep Tata. I don't want to take all of that away from him because, when we've got our 3 U22 players, they were clearly tied to Tata. Tata did call that out. Or people around the club called out. Tata always wanted to play with these players. He's been scouting for years. I get it, but there are scouts. We have scouts, and we are connected to the best player in the world who 80-90% of all players in the world will take salary cuts to play next to.
Yeah, no, it's not about convincing players to come. I think it's about finding who are the up and coming players. And I think you're not giving Tata enough credit, if I'm being perfectly honest, but that's okay. We can agree to disagree.
I just from friends inside the club, I'm constantly being told Messi and Co are running things behind the scenes, and it's never stated in a way that Tata's part of Co. For your podcasters, I am air quoting Co. And so I don't, it's almost like I'm not disagreeing that Tata has the abilities. I just don't think they're being utilized to that extent on this team at this point.
Maybe you're right. I'm sure a lot of what we have with Tata, you could confuse for what Messi's group is doing. And I guess that's maybe the next question is, certainly when Tata was hired, it felt like Inter Miami knew that they were getting Lionel Messi. And of course, Messi would have had a say in approving of Tata Martino as becoming the coach. And he would certainly have a say in whether Tata leaves and who the next coach would be. So I guess, do you think that's even realistic? Or do you think that the Messi camp is happy?
That is, I think that's the $1 million question. Does Messi think we can win with Tata? Does Messi think Tata's a problem? There's the flip side to the argument of, does Messi want someone more powerful, more vocal than Tata, who might counterman Messi? That's a concern Messi probably has.
But hold on, let me stop you. Let me stop you.
Let me not put that Messi. Let me say Messi's camp possibly has.
Let me stop you because I think the things we want from our coach in 2025, whether it's Tata or not, are not things that have to do with political power inside the club or training or anything like that. It's about like exactly how you use players in game, exactly how you prep for the biggest games. Like, it's not cultural. Yeah,
but what happens when the tactics are not what Messi wants to run that day? Who wins that argument? Right now, I truly believe it's Messi. But if you get a new coach that's maybe comes in and says, when I want to run, I want to run a high press. Messi, you're going to have to run more. Messi says, no, I refuse to do that. Who wins that argument?
I understand, but
that's the concern.
No, I understand. But no coach would come in and like Inter Miami wouldn't hire a coach that was advocating for that in games that Messi and Suarez are trying to start. Like whatever it is, it has to be built around what Messi is and has
100%.
because he's your best player. So like the process for getting a new coach would involve making sure he has a plan for how to best utilize Messi and that Messi.
And I'll say this, I 100% think that if there's a new coach name out there, that name has been long decided on. I don't think we're starting a coaching search or something of this point like this. I'm sure it's out there. It's as we're having this conversation, I just love this conversation. I also think that we're talking about it probably more than the club is. Whatever they're going to do, they know what they're already going to do, and this has long been decided.
I think that you're absolutely right that if they know who the next coach is going to be, the next coach under Messi is going to be, whether they're ready to pull the trigger on going there or not, I agree with you. But I do think the club is surprised that we're here where we are right now, not in the playoffs, not getting ready to take on Orlando City and feeling like we have a clear path to MLS Cup after Columbus and Cincinnati lost. So in that scenario, I think they are taking a few days to sort of reflect on how to go forward from here.
Surprised that we lost, yes, but I think there has to be an asterisk to that, yes, because we had a history of losing in tournaments coming into this. We had the CCC debacle. We have Leagues Cup. Like, I don't think the club can really say, oh my God, it was a huge shock we bounced out of MLS Cup. There's never been anything kind of leaning that way. There was talk. I mean, when coming into this season, if you choose to read ESPN, I know some of your listeners of yours may believe ESPN is the worst soccer outlet known to man. I have friends that do. But if you choose to listen to that, they were putting Tata Martino on the hot seat before the season even started. So I think to say it's a full surprise when that's how we started the season, then you had CCC. I think everyone peaked. Oh my God, we won the 7 games without Messi. Tata's the greatest coach in the world. Hey, we got the points record. And so we had this peak of about 2 months where everything went really well. But before that peak and after the peak, we're in the same place.
Yeah. I still think the club is surprised we're here because if they didn't think we were on track to go to the MLS Cup, they would have made changes earlier, right? They would have made changes after the Leagues Cup. I'm sorry, after the CONCACAF Champions Cup, if they didn't feel like Tata could get more out of this team.
Yeah, but I think that's when you and I talked. I think it was right around that time. And all of a sudden we had that winning streak and the 7 games. And leading into the Copa break, things were kind of going well-ish. Yeah. And I think Tata,
we did just lose to Atlanta.
Yeah, we had just lost a lot. But so a lot of stuff started working. And so I think there was this moment where it's like, okay, we can't really fire him now. And a lot of people, I got to tell you, at that point in this season, this Tata out train had a lot of empty seats on it. Me and Mike V, I don't know if Mike V watches your show, but me and Mike V kind of were driving the train by ourselves. And over the past 48 hours, we're now having a standby only, and you got to go book a ticket 2 weeks in advance to get on the train because it's gotten so popular. So it's been interesting. And it's the flip side of this is, and I've said it on my own show, if we had won MLS Cup, are we having this conversation? Is all forgiven if we had won MLS Cup? I wouldn't have forgiven him, but I also knew there was no way he was getting fired.
But this is back to the standards and whether this season was success. If you win the MLS Cup and you win the Supporter Shield and you are dominant and break points records over the last 4 months, of course, the season is a success and Tata Martino as a result is a success. But because we lost, and not just lost, but lost to a team that we had no business losing to over 3 games, which we had no business losing, that's why we're here. And someone in the chat made this point. You can't replace all the players. And I know people are ready to fire Drake Callender and Toto Aviles and David Martinez and all these players into the sun. But the truth is you're going to have most of these guys back next year because this is the team that Messi and Tata wanted to build. They want to go forward with. The easiest, best thing you can do across the world in any team is to change managers and try and get something more out of the team you have 100%. Because of who the manager is. So final answer, I leave it to you. Tata in or Tata out as we go through this soul-searching experience.
I mean, I was Tata out months ago when you thought I was crazy and defended him. So I don't I don't see what Tata could do differently next year just because of who he is. I don't think he can turn around from losing every major tournament we were in a disgraceful manner to all of a sudden bringing home major tournament-based hardware. And again, going back to what was said by Branson is, and actually I'm gonna quote Solana here. MLS Cup is a tournament. It's not a playoff. And to win at that, we have to become a tournament team that's capable of winning tournaments. And Tata did nothing the entire season to show he can win tournaments. And so we need to find a coach that can take his team winning tournaments. A team that had 74 points in the regular season has to be capable of winning tournament games, and he's not. So I'm very much on Tata out. I think it's going to be criminal if they keep him. But they already have my money for next year, so I'm stuck going. So if I have to watch another year of Tata and his dad outfits, I'll have to watch them.
Before I want to talk for a few minutes about what this team does need to do in the offseason, but before that, do you think he'll be back next year?
I don't, because I think Jorge Mas wants something a bigger trophy, and I don't think watching Mas's body language Saturday night did not look like an owner that's going to be at all happy with his coach. So I do think we move on. But like this game, I'm saying this, and I'm still going to be heartbroken when they keep him.
It does feel like a moment for Inter Miami's ownership to say, we have the biggest ambitions or we have big ambitions. You know what I mean? And, if you're the New York Yankees, you fire the coach. If you are Manchester City, you fire the coach. If you're Barcelona, you fire the coach. And does Inter Miami want to be that level of prestige in the MLS? And I think this is a moment for them to make that decision. Obviously, you're Tata out. I don't think he's going to get fired, even though as a fan, and my money's not on the line, I would want to be the most ambitious, so I would do that. But it does feel like a moment for the ownership to make that decision. Okay, let's talk about in the next 5 minutes or so what Inter Miami needs to do, moving on from the coach, for next season. Talk about the roster a little bit and what you want to see.
Yeah, I am going to anger all of the people in the comment section right now, and you'll probably get some hate mail for this one. I think our number one ad is left wing. I think we need a pacey left winger. I know everyone's talking. People think Fries can come back and do it. I'm not sold on him with the injury concerns. We are a team that unfortunately has struggles with injuries. I want a 25 to 27-year-old player to come in and just be pacey, be able to open up the left side, be able to balance with Alba, good crossover play. And I think that's our number one need. I think our inability to score goals in big games. I know you mentioned we have the most goals scored, but in the big games, we can never score goals. The two biggest games, I think, of the season, we actually won was a 3-2 and a 2-1 victory. Like, we could never win, really put up a lot. And if we can start really taking it to their teams and causing the other teams to have to back up a little bit and not just believe that Messi's going to dribble straight into them, I think it starts taking some pressure off the midfield. We do need a backup for Bright. We saw, I think it was mentioned in your chat that, once we lost Bright, 5 goals scored on us. I don't think that's entirely on Bright. I put those very much more on Tata, but I do want to see that. Upgrading center backs, I think, is a little bit of a luxury, and this is where I'm going to get hung. We've put big money into Martinez. I really think we're going to sell Kristoff, and so that's going to give us some money back. So maybe, that taking him and replacing him with a kind of an equal paid guy would be great. But we've got Frey. Frey, they're saying, should be back again. And so I think that's where you put it. When it comes to goalkeeper, unless you're going to go get a big name guy that's won a lot and has better ball distribution, and you're going to pay for him, think of Hugo Lloris. There's no reason to move on from Drake. He is not, in my opinion, why we're losing matches. I go back to, we cannot score in big matches. We have shown a complete inability to do so. And frankly, we should have lost in Atlanta 2-0. no goals scored. We only scored 2 goals in the first one and 2 in the second. I just don't think that's good enough for a team built around Messi and Suarez and Busquets and Alba. These are guys that are talked about scoring goals, and we're not doing enough there. So we need some more help on the attacking side of the field to really have this team. Like, this is what MLS, this is what salary caps cause. You got to make some hard decisions. I think investing in the defense is going to lead to lower scoring losses, not like lower losses where we just have less goals scored on us, but we still didn't score enough goals.
No, I actually agree with almost everything you said, other than I think getting another defensive midfielder is the most important thing. You don't have to spend the most money on it. Like, it can be a Dixon Arroyo type player, but when Bright left, wasn't on the field this year, the difference in our midfield's ability to operate was substantial. And so there needs to be someone else that can do that role. But I agree with you in the fact that I think left wing is going to be where they spend the biggest, or they go out and get the most prominent name. I don't think Robert Taylor is going to be back, so you have some money to work with from that. Diego Gomez obviously is not going to be back either. So you have money and space to go get another left winger. Christov's going to be gone. Nico Freire, I imagine, won't be back. So you have money to go get a center back if you want to. Cello, I think, might be gone. Because I thought he was fine, but once you have to pay the transfer fee, his salary charge is significantly higher because you have to amortize that. So I'm not sure if he'll be back or not. But I think you've nailed the spots on the field. Same thing with Drake. You have to get an absolute superstar if you're going to move on from Drake. And I don't know if that is going to make sense for Inter Miami from an international roster slot perspective or a cap charge perspective. So I think we're probably going to get Drake back. But that feels like another ambitious thing, right? Is Inter Miami going to go out and get a David De Gea or whatever, something like that, to get a huge upgrade, show their ambition or not? We'll see.
And then lastly, can get Martinez on a 1-year loan from Aston Villa? Like, just Messi says he wants him to become a little more of an Argentine team.
Right. Well, and I don't know who the backup. Points. I don't know who the backup for Argentina, the Argentine national team is. Maybe they're available, but you understand. What about Suarez? You think we have Suarez back, and would you bring him back?
I would. Oh God, okay. I have no allegiance to Suarez. In fact, on my show, I did not think I was on Taylor Twellman. I think level of like, this guy's not going to do it all. He had 20 goals for the team. He's playing on peanuts. Yes, 100% bring him back. I take this back though if he wants to be a DP, because if he's a DP, I think that changes things. But as long as he's a TAM player, 100%. Bring him back. I do think some serious questions has to ask about Busquets' salary, the $8 million we're paying for him, and does he need to be a TAM player going forward? And I know we disagree on Alba. I am a little scared that Alba's only on TAM money. Like, is that going to affect him next year? Kind of does make me nervous. But yeah, your argument questions. If Suarez wants to come back for $1 million, I will write part of that check on my own because I think he was integral. But then let's have the other conversation. I think it's time to move on from Campana. I was very against Campana early in the season. I have come around, and I like him and I respect him, but I think his time here is done. He deserves a chance on another team. I don't think we'll get the $2 million we'll paid for him back, but if we can get some money back, especially if we can get Gam for him back in the interleague trade, I think it's best for him and best for us. And then let's go find another striker.
I do think it's tough to hold Campana and Suarez for next year just because Campana needs to play. I think you get a huge haul back for Campana, if I'm being honest with you, whether that's selling him abroad because he's on the Ecuador national team. I think you're getting a big haul from him.
I'd love that. I don't think it's as big as it would have been a year ago. So I got to say this. Inability to score, inability to keep a clean sheet is more like it. Our team was not built to keep clean sheets. There should be no expectation by fans that we'd ever keep a clean sheet. This team was put together to score more goals than the other team. I know it's for American football fans, that's a John Maddenism, but that's what this team was built for. We were built to win 4-2, 4-1, 3-2, like games that look like that. And that's what we had. We've struggled to put up those type of goal numbers on a regular basis, specifically in tournament play. And tournament play, we just for some reason can't score lots of goals. And so I never expected clean sheets. I expected us to score a lot more goals when it mattered. I think that's the key because everyone's going to call, we scored all these goals. But when it mattered, we never did. Sorry,
Yeah.
that was a rant. I apologize. That one.
It's okay.
rant.
My last question, just for the clicks. Let's say we get Suarez back on a TAM deal, we get Jordi Alba back on a TAM deal. You can replace a center back using the Kristoff money, who's going to be a free agent, and the Frede money. So you can get another quality center back. With that, you can bring in a defensive midfielder and a pacey left winger with the Diego Gomez departure and potentially Robert Taylor. So the roster is very similar. Either you bring back Cello or you just have the same type of thing. And the MLS adds another DP. Do you bring in Neymar? If you can. And if everything else is settled.
Here's the funny thing. Call me crazy, but I remember watching PSG and remember everyone talking about how much better PSG played when Neymar wasn't on the field. So I had this opinion in my head the whole time that Messi didn't like Neymar. And yet this keeps on being brought up. And so did I miss something? Are these guys friends? Do they like each other or do they not? Because if they like each other,
friends. They're great.
Are they really? Because I always struggled with this because everyone would talk about how much better the team was when PSG was a shit show that year. Darren, I don't
think Messi would have gone to PSG if he wasn't friends with Neymar, because they knew each other from Barcelona.
I'm good with bringing Neymar on a DP roster. Like, first off, getting a chance to see Messi and Neymar in person is going to be amazing.
I know.
I do think defenses will struggle with a Neymar, Messi, Suarez fronts, no matter how old they are. But I also really need to say that he has to come cheap. I don't think he can come on a DP deal. I think he has to come on a TAM deal. And so you talk about the money he'll make. Neymar coming to America, being in Miami, will make so much money, additional money in sponsorships, stuff like that, that it needs to offset us breaking salary cap to make it happen. I don't want us to spend DP money on anyone else over the age of like 32.
Okay, just out of curiosity, let's say there is a fourth DP and you have a very similar roster next year. Where would you spend that DP? What part of the field? What type of player?
Oh, I would put it in the left wing. I just don't necessarily want to put it on Neymar. I do think I want DP money at the left wing. I think that's a really great DP. Or if you lose Suarez, because remember, Suarez is not a DP, he's TAM. If we were to lose Suarez, a true DP striker with Messi and possibly a left wing, you're scoring goals. Like, there's no way you can't score goals with that kind of stuff. Where Messi can really be the string puller, not the actor. And you saw that so much towards the end of the last game where Messi just kept on dribbling into walls because he had no one to get the ball to. He was struggling. And someone that can unlock that would be huge.
Yeah, no, that's what the left winger job needs to be for this team and for Messi. And that's why it shocks me so much that Robert Taylor kind of disappeared in the end of the season. Okay, Mike, any last words before I cut you off? I know you probably have one more 7-minute rant in you. So I'm not going to rant.
No, this is great. I kept my rants. It's good. Tomorrow night, I hope you don't mind. I'm going to plug it. My partner, Brent, and I will be on Battered Herons. There will be ranting because Danny has fought me tooth and nail on the Fire Tata movement, and I think he's finally coming around. So looking forward to a very, very fun show with a little bit more hostility in a fun and jovial manner.
Awesome, guys. Check it out and plug your own show too, man.
Yeah, so we're going to do it with the Inter Miami show. It's going to be a co-show. Inter Miami show, we typically go every Tuesday. We were a little absent during the playoffs, mostly due to just bad scheduling. We'll be doing the co-show this week, some kind of Inter Miami recap next week, mostly so that Branson, my partner, can just tell us that he was totally right about Suarez. But a lot of fun. And then I will throw out there, anyone local, make sure you are checking out Fort Lauderdale United, the new women's program. If you're like an OG Inter Miami season ticket holder, remember the 2021-2022 days, that's what it's like going back to Fort Lauderdale United. It's the new USL Super League team out of Fort Lauderdale. We had a blast in the rain yesterday, and it's fun. And they play a normal schedule, so they will be playing in the early winter months.
Yeah, guys. And I put the link to the Inter Miami show in the in the thing. So check it out if you guys want to. And Mike, thanks again for being here. Guys, me and Sor will be back on Thursday to play a little off-season bingo. We'll talk about what could happen this off-season and a little bit of a primer. And I think that'll be a lot of fun. But until then, guys, thanks for being here. Hope you have a wonderful night, and we will see you next time. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Do us a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. Since our first viewer, sharing this with you all has been the very best part. So from the beginning until the end, thank you for being a part of this and have a wonderful day.